Welcome everybody. We're just so grateful that you could join us tonight. We know that you're very busy in the important work that you do and that you take time out of your schedule to join us tonight. It's really exciting for us, and I'm so excited for this webinar tonight. First of all, I'm here with some of my most cherished colleagues, and I just think this is just such an exciting topic and such a timely topic. So I always begin our webinars with this slide just because I always want people to know, kind of who we are and what we stand for. There may be some people in the audience tonight that don't know anything about 95% Group. And so these are kind of our foundational principles. This drives the work that we do here at 95% Group. I kind of call them our North Stars. We believe that all children deserve a chance to learn to read. And our purpose is to unlock the power of literacy for every child. And we do that by building on the science to empower teachers, all educators, with knowledge and resources and support. And that's really what Top 10 Tools is about as well. And we are a company that really has teachers at the heart of our mission. We always say that we're made by educators for educators. And again, another reason Top 10 Tools is just the very best fit because we have this teacher-centric approach in all of our resources and all of our professional learning to really amplify your impact as educators. So I want to spend just a minute talking about a distinctive feature of 95% Group, which is our unique literacy ecosystem approach. We call this our 195 literacy ecosystem. And what you see here is our kind of instructional solutions that are cohesive and aligned in instruction across grades and across tiers to provide that really consistent academic language, those consistent high impact routines. So what this shows is this kind of shows what we call our flagship products in each of our tiers of instruction. Tier 1 core instruction is our phonics core program. It spans K5, which also is a wonderful feature of our foundational skills. Tier 2 intervention, we offer a fully aligned phonics lesson library, and it's connected to Tier 1 through a very precise and easy to use diagnostic assessment, which is part of our 95 literacy intervention system. And Tier 3, we offer 95 RAP, and that's a really one-of-a-kind individualized approach for students in need of more intensive instruction. So again, all of these products are cohesive and aligned with the same scope and sequence, each tier designed to give more time and intensity and focus of instruction to really meet the needs of all of our learners. And what you see at the bottom there is that all of these products are underscored by strong and comprehensive professional learning. So I really want to reinforce this idea of this aligned and cohesive product offerings in all tiers of instruction, wrapped around by that comprehensive high quality partnerships that we offer in professional learning. And our crown jewel of that comprehensive professional learning is Top 10 Tools by 95% Group, which is the topic of our webinar tonight. Now, here's what we're going to be talking about in our brief time together. We are really going to be digging into Top 10 Tools by 95% Group. How does it build knowledge for all of us, administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals? And we're going to meet one of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Deb Glaser, who created Top 10 Tools. And then we're going to take a peek inside to kind of see a little bit about what happens when you get into Top 10 Tools and what you actually learn. And we'll also hear from one of our wonderful partners at Bozeman Public Schools on their journey in professional learning and the outcomes they've been able to receive with Top 10 Tools. And really learn, like, how can you build this same kind of tailored approach to professional learning? But wait, there's more. So you have to stay through the end because we're going to have a giveaway, Top 10 Tools giveaway, and everybody's a winner. You're also going to get a QR code for a free trial for Top 10 Tools. You don't want to miss it. All right, so it gives me pleasure now to introduce Dr. Deb Glaser, the author of Top 10 Tools, and also of another amazing resource that we have, Morpheme Magic. We did a webinar on that recently, Deb, and I mean, people were loving on that. And Deb is just a very nationally recognized literacy expert. So I'm just going to give a little background on Dr. Deb. So she's a consultant, author, educator, beloved for enriching teachers' knowledge of reading and for her proven instructional methods, which you see all over Top 10 Tools by 95% Group. Following her teaching career, Deb directed the educational arm of a nonprofit dyslexia learning center, the Lee Pesky Learning Center, where she developed programs to teach teachers and students. Deb was one of the original letters trainers, and was a policy advisor to the National Council on Teacher Quality. She regularly contributes to the evaluation of university programs that prepare our teachers to teach reading, and that's a really wonderful and needed service, Deb. She is the author and co-author of 5 books, and of course, I mentioned earlier, Morpheme Magic and Morphemes for Little Ones, which are also part of our 95 literacy ecosystem. So with that, I'm just going to turn that over to you, Deb. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Laura. But thank all of you who are relaxing, hopefully after a hard day teaching, difficult and rewarding day teaching, for joining us tonight. And I hope that we are able to answer your questions about Top 10 Tools in tonight's session, questions you may have, but please do enter some questions into the chat if you have some. I'd be happy to answer those. I started my work working with teachers and realized very quickly that I am a teacher's teacher many, many years ago. And over the several years that I was training teachers, I became aware through multiple conversations with teachers following the training that teachers really enjoyed hearing about the knowledge and the science of reading, but left feeling empty because they didn't know how to apply that knowledge. And they wanted to know if I had any videos of me teaching, because I modeled a lot of teaching when I worked in groups with teachers of how to teach explicitly and systematically, how to respond to students. And that got me thinking, I need to put together a package of professional development for teachers. And that led me to, for a couple years, working with very talented editors and videographers to create the Top 10 Tools. My room at one point was filled with Post-its all the way around with everything I wanted teachers to know about and everything I wanted them to be able to do with that information. And over time, assimilated a core of 10 basic, we'll call them capacities. They were referred to and are still referred to as components of reading, but capacities of reading that I wanted teachers to learn about and know about, and developed the tools, the Top 10 Tools. So what does it take to achieve true learning and change? Well, that is a huge question. I don't know who wrote that question because I could take all day to answer it. But what it takes is a lifetime of dedication. And those of you who have been teaching reading for a short time, those of you who have been teaching reading for a long time know that there's no end to what we can learn about reading and how to teach reading and how to respond to each of our students during that process. So it takes professional development. We are professionals and developing, always developing as professionals. Laura and I were just at the Reading League Summit last week, and I realized in this room of people who care about what they do, I am company with some of the most dedicated professionals there are, and all of you, I know, are dedicated to what you got into this job to do. So clarifying the research findings is huge, needs to be succinct. And I did that in Top 10 Tools. But more than that, those research findings need to connect to knowledge and instruction and remain current. That's the beauty of an online course, is that we can go into the course and keep it up to date with the new research, the research that continues to create these folds of knowledge in the Top 10 Tools. Another piece of science that I want to bring to your attention tonight, and this is from the cognitive scientists and behavioral science scientists, is how do we create habits? How do we recreate new habits? And specifically, let's think about teaching habits. But the way we create a new habit in our behaviors is to tie it to a habit we already have. something in our schedule. So, for example, if you are watching a video of a teacher teaching a comprehension process, for example, think about your own teaching now during comprehension. And what are you doing now to which you can hook or link this behavior, this teaching behavior or process that you're learning about? And remind yourself every day when you are beginning to implement your previous habit, that is your key or your hook to, oh, yes, that's right. I remember we can do the TWA was one of the comprehension processes I go over in Top 10 Tools, for example. Implementing practices that are purposefully chosen to attain goals. So in Top 10 Tools, there is a reference to K through 3 instruction and also 4 through 6 instruction, because many of our older students continue to need our support in all of these teaching the capacities, we'll call them. So developing those teaching habits toward reaching those goals that we set for our students based on assessment, based on our observation. And we want to develop these habits so that they become sustained, so they're not forgotten. When a new trend comes along, we know what we need to stick to in our classroom and teaching our students. So you need support. Lots of support, not just through professional development, but through your through the administration. And those of you who are administrators who are here tonight learning about Top 10 Tools, it's important to seek professional development that not only answers questions, but teaches teachers how to implement this and get this going in their classrooms, the teaching process.
Really, Deb, it really is the what, the why, and the how.
Yeah, what we need to know, why we need to know it, and how. So empowering educators with knowledge and evidence-aligned practices to develop strong readers. And this is where I like to remind us of the term pedagogy. What is our pedagogy, which means the art and the science of teaching? We can learn about the science, what the science tells us, but the art is how we apply that science, how we integrate the capacities or the components of reading, because one capacity isolated from the other is not as effective as when we combine those capacities. And one of the next slides, I'll talk about that a little bit more. So Top 10 Tools was created to provide an online course that is a flexible asynchronous learning course. I say flexible because teachers can take as long to go through the course as they need. You can put together the components you want and think are most important for the teachers or for your individual self to address. First of all, you can move from vocabulary to comprehension. You can come back to decoding. You can move through the tools in any order that would work best for you, although we do make recommendations for how to begin and what grouping of tools to use. It will immerse you in the science of reading. If your goal is to move into a evidence based practice that is current, that helps teachers apply the practice that is most successful with most students, and then delve deeper into the issues of working with students with dyslexia. It is in Top 10 Tools. The information is there for you and the support as well. One of the things we also have, and we recognize that a teacher alone taking a course is not as effective as teachers working with other teachers and also with the support of a coach, is we have coaches support tools that I've created that guide coaches in their conversations with teachers as they're going through the Top 10 Tools. So there are support mechanisms that are available for schools who take on a professional development or even take on Top 10 Tools to support previous professional development that a school may have been involved in, and a nice review. It's a good beginning. It's a nice review. So here are the tools. It begins with tool 1, and you might think of these as units or or chapters, but I call them tools because these are our tools within these categories or these capacities. What is the capacity of our own learning, the capacities of our students? Always start with tool one because that is where the knowledge of how we learn to read is housed and sets the stage for then studying these other components. Oral language is next because that is the basis upon which reading develops. Perfect correlation between our oral language and also our reading. And so, how do we engage students in oral language, children who have language difficulties as well, to build their language skills as we are teaching reading? Of course, phoneme awareness is next, which builds that knowledge of how to teach for phoneme awareness, reviews a lot about phonemes and phoneme awareness for teachers who may have had some study in phonology previously, but always connected then to the supportive or reciprocal component capacity, phonics and spelling. And then how that phonics and spelling is supported by vocabulary. One's vocabulary is related to one's decoding ability and vice versa. Okay, once we become good decoders, we are reading more and are exposed to a greater vocabularies and begin to develop our vocabulary more deeply as well. But also how to best teach vocabulary, including morphology. Comprehension, wow, that's the most complex of the capacities, but is dependent upon everything, all of these tools. And fluency, reading fluency, how to assess it, how to interpret those assessments, and how to plan appropriate instruction. Writing is one of my favorite tools, and we approach the writing from the sentence level, from the writing about what we read, about what we are learning, teaching writing through the content and the context of what children are learning. Read alouds, we don't want to overlook the power of the read aloud for developing vocabulary, oral language, interest in reading, comprehension. The listening comprehension, which is actually one of uh, the components in the simple view of reading, language comprehension or listening comprehension, which along with decoding, these are the proxal, the most important, the salient pieces of what we need for reading comprehension to happen, can be built right into our read alouds as well, not only with our young students, but also with our older students, modeling a lot of comprehension strategies as we read to them. And tool 10 then is the collaboration piece that brings it all together. Because once our teachers, and during the process of our educators going through the tools, those collaboration meetings are what keep the information on the surface in our windshield as we approach our planning with our students every day. Now, some of the schools I've worked with wanted to start with the collaboration model, which was beautiful. There's part of that flexibility. Let's build our professional learning communities so that as we go through the top 10 tools, we will be in a position to know how to interpret assessment results and how to have those conversations about how to apply what we are learning in our professional development as we're going through the course. So there's an overview of the top 10 tools, and I'm so pleased that 95% Group now has top 10 tools as part of their offerings. It was first on the scene in 2017, and it kind of shocked me today when I thought, oh my gosh, that was 10 years ago. And look where we are now. We're in a third edition of the course, and it is really current, and I'm just so pleased that it is in the 95% Group product line.
Deb, I have to say 95% Group, I can speak for all of us to say we're really delighted to have it. And a couple of things you mentioned that I really want to make sure our audience hears is, first of all, these looks like they're separate tools, but they're all interconnected. This is really, it's comprehensive and cohesive. It's just like our whole literacy ecosystem approach. That these aren't desperate resources, desperate to professional learning opportunities. It's all cohesively brought together in this wonderful product, Top 10 Tools. And I also love, the fact that it's constantly, we're constantly able to revise and update with the most current research. That's a really terrific feature.
Yeah. And I think that 95% group wanted me to talk a little bit about the course structure. So if we're going to see a video in a moment that will take you inside of the course a little bit. But the structure, every one of those 10 tools is developed around these topics. So we begin each of the tools by building background, setting the stage for learning about that particular tool, that capacity. Um, so, building the background, giving you some nice research on why we're going to take a look at this component, and then the why. So, the up to date research on literacy, studying the through narratives, through videos, and through some readings, and also through interactives. You will work through the research and then observe a classroom. So how is this done? Observing this research in action in classrooms and watching a lot of application through modeling of practices. And there are also practice guides, forms to help you planning guides that help you take this information into account in planning for your students. You're the person who knows your students best. And then a wrap up with reflection and helping you then summarize for your use this information as you want to apply it in your classrooms. So in each tool, there is a part one that's the building the background and the research. And then part two has the observe a classroom applying to instruction and the wrap up. And in the wrap up, we also have conversations with researchers where they can share what themselves, so you can hear their voices as they talk about their research and how they have hopes for this research finding you in your classroom.
Going to say, that application piece, Deb, that's so important. I mean, many of us have, as teachers, as educators, have been through lengthy, deep knowledge building, professional learning, but it's that application piece that really makes such a difference. So thank you for that. Yeah, so we're just going to dig in a little bit for a little tiny video here to show you a little bit about what it looks like once you're into Top 10 Tools. Enjoy.
Welcome to Top 10 Tools by 95% Group, your go-to resource for transforming literacy instruction with the latest science-backed strategies. Whether you're a new teacher or a seasoned pro, Top 10 Tools is designed with you in mind. It's professional learning that fits into your busy schedule. 45 hours of focused, flexible instruction you can access anytime, anywhere. What makes Top 10 Tools stand out? It's not just the content, it's the experience. Once you access the learning platform, you'll see the main menu to the left. The menu walks you through all 10 tools in a logical, easy to follow order, so you can find what you need when you need it. The best part of this experience is that you can work at your own pace. Let's take a quick look at Tool 4, the Phonics and Spelling module. This module covers everything from the phases of word recognition, how the brain changes with reading intervention, the 4 processors of the brain, and you'll learn science-based routines and strategies to teach phonics and spelling. There are videos to watch, articles you can print if you prefer to read, as well as interactive activities. After each module, you have tools to implement in your classroom the very next day. We blend the science of reading with real-world application, showing you not just what to teach, but how to teach it. In just 45 hours, you'll gain the tools to create confident, capable readers in every classroom. Ready to revolutionize your reading instruction? Get Top 10 Tools by 95% Group.
All right, let's see. I was just checking the chat. I don't think we have any questions, Deb. So thank you for that. It really is an incredible, it's an incredible opportunity for teachers and in their professional learning journey. So to dig a
Well,
little, yes, go ahead. Anybody else saying? Oh, I thought somebody was saying something. All right, very good. So now to give you a little bit more information about strategically using professional learning through Top 10 Tools at 95% Group is our Vice President of Educational Strategy, Dr. Erin Hamilton.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Laura, I appreciate that. If you go to the next slide for us, I'd like to talk a little bit about the use of top 10 tools within our state. All of our states across the country have different requirements or sometimes mandated professional learning requirements for science of reading training. And I noticed some of our friends that are joining us tonight come from our states that we have approvals in across the country. So if you can see on the slide in front of you, we've taken the states across the country and divided them into 3 categories. The middle category are states that require educators to adopt a science of reading training from an approved list. And I noticed that we have Kathy Moore here from Oklahoma City, who is coming from Oklahoma, which we have an approval there in that state. We have someone on the call today from Colorado, knowing that that's approved in your state as well. And we have Tracy here from New Berlin, Wisconsin, also someone that's in a state where we have an approval on a state list. So as Dr. Deb Glaser told us earlier, this is really a flexible learning journey that you can walk through within your organization. So whether you have a state that's already involved in a mandatory science of reading training requirement, we encourage you to take a look at top 10 tools to use as a complement to that requirement. Deb showed us a lot of the flexibility that can be used to build more knowledge in specific capacities or components, and how we can engage in that practice piece and what it looks like in the classroom, that how that Laura talked about. If you sit in a state that has not yet given an adopted list or a recommended list, we're really encouraging you to take a look at top 10 tools and see where you can implement that across your entire school system. And in just a second, we'll show you where top 10 tools can fit in your system. This slide will show you the variety of options you have to embed top 10 tools into your school or your district or your state level. First, we have the Top 10 Tools by 95% Group Standard course. The standard course will give you all that Dr. Deb Glaser explained earlier on our webinar. It gives you access to this content for an entire year. So like she mentioned, you can go back and dive deeper into a component or spend a little bit more time in a cohort talking about what you learned and observing practice and going back and revisiting that content. It also gives you that 45 hours of that flexible asynchronous online content. We also have Top 10 Tools by 95% Group, the IDA version, and this is specifically aligned to the knowledge and practice standards. So it's going to require you to take a deeper dive into your practice and provide evidence that you're taking your knowledge and really building that into your classroom instruction. And finally, the third piece of the Top 10 Tools by 95% Group is the foundational tools, and this was designed for literacy support staff. And so they took our top 10 tools and pulled out 3 of those modules: oral language, phonemes and phonics, and the spelling module, and pulled those out specifically to highlight for those that are supporting educators in a role working with students. This too is flexible and asynchronous. It offers 10 hours of that content, which can also be done in cohorts or done with groups of support staff, in addition to the teachers that are taking the standard course. This truly allows for all of your staff to be leveled up with the same knowledge of the oral language, the phonemes and phonics, and the spelling components to be able to speak common language and be able to put those practices into place with their students that they're touching. So if we wanted to talk for just a minute about effective ways that you can use top 10 tools in your school or your district, this option truly allows you to build a tailored professional learning package that's right for all of your educators across your system. We talked about using it as an initial training or a complement of a required training that you already have. The main difference that I see with top 10 tools is taking that what and moving it to how. And I think our next speaker is going to really highlight that for you and share how that can be done well. And then we also want to recognize that this can be effectively used by specific roles. We just mentioned your leadership team and how valuable it is for your leadership team to build their knowledge and their depth to be able to go in and support classroom instruction and feedback that they're giving their teachers. Also, those supporting educators that we have delivering that tier 2 or tier 3 instruction, speaking common language is really, really critical. We also believe that there are benefits for sharing this with multiple audiences, like we just mentioned. And finally, thinking about it as a system implementation. So you have your stakeholders from your administration, your leadership teams, to your educators that are in the classrooms, to your supporting educators taking the foundational tools. And with that, I want to introduce to you our next guest, Megan Roth. Megan Roth is the founder of the Bozeman Reads Early Literacy Center, which opened in the fall of 2024 and now serves approximately 100 children. The center emerged from the Bozeman Reads Early Literacy Initiative, which Megan launched in 2021 to strengthen community-wide support for foundational literacy development. With over 20 years of experience in public education, primarily in preschool special education, Megan has cultivated a strong commitment to early intervention and science-based reading instruction. She's a passionate advocate for educational equity and believes that literacy for all is a critical social imperative. Megan actively contributes to statewide and local efforts to improve early learning. She is a member of the Montana Early Learning Alliance and Bozeman's Early Childhood Community Coalition, and she serves on the board of the Reading League Montana. Welcome, Megan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Megan, we're so happy to have you here, and maybe you could just start by talking a little bit about your student population.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know Bozeman, we are in the Northern Rocky Mountains. We are a town of about 60,000 people. About a quarter of that is student population. So our school district is medium-sized, small if you're in a large urban district, home to Montana State. And we are one of the fastest growing metropolitan or micropolitan, I guess, areas in the country.
All right, how about your demographics?
Bozeman is largely white. We are growing our diversity by the day, which is really nice. We do have a lot of intergenerational poverty. A lot of native Bozemanites and Montanans have rural connections where economic opportunity has been steadily declining. So Bozeman sometimes is thought of as like a home of the beautiful people, but it's actually a place that hides its poverty pretty well. And we have a lot of intergenerational poverty here that we're combating.
All right, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about your cadence data.
Yeah, so over the past few years, we started our kind of science of reading journey around 2020. Our data has stayed pretty flat. These numbers are high compared to other districts and compared to the state of Montana, but we're firm believers that we can hit that 95%. And so while they're good, they're not good enough for us. So our numbers have stayed really flat at first glance.
And how about third grade reading proficiency, 21 to 24?
Yeah, so what we've noticed is like those blue bars or those Acadian scores have maintained, have stayed really flat. That orange line is indicative of this enormous jump we've had in our multilingual learner population. And so we have increased 120% in 2 years, our Spanish speaking student community. A lot of these students are known as SLIFE, which is an acronym that I just learned, which is students with limited or interrupted formal education. So these are students that not only are learning another language, but have significant trauma, need support in kind of basic academic foundations, basic school readiness pieces as well. So it's been a challenge for us to keep up with that. So we are proud of the fact that we're at least maintaining that level of proficiency while we kind of welcome a new population into the district.
Sure. Like you said, 120% increase.
Yeah, it's been massive.
Well, good. Well, so thank you for that background. I think that's really important for us to kind of set the stage with that. So let's talk about professional learning. Let's just talk about, kind of your district's journey in professional learning.
Yeah, so we started around 2019. Our superintendent really decided to pull back the curtain on the data and really be transparent about what was going on in our schools. Again, our numbers look good, but also we're showing that we weren't closing a gap. So kids who came in high stayed high, but kids who came in struggling, we were maintaining that struggle or it was getting worse over time. So we really decided to dig into evidence-based strategies and hired Dr. Nell Thompson as a consultant, and really went with that teacher knowledge philosophy. Like Deb was saying, really knowing that teacher knowledge is what moves the moves the needle for kids. So we launched Top 10 Tools over 3 years. And we staggered it across grade bands so we could do it really well. And we were also able to tailor the modules so that it was most relevant to the grade bands that were engaging in it. This wasn't a one-time initiative. The learning continues. And so we're keep rolling Top 10 Tools for all of our new teachers as part of their onboarding process.
Mm-hmm. So Danielle kind of helped you with this kind of big picture, how are you going to transform over time? In the meantime, all teachers are going through Top 10 Tools, and then new incoming teachers are continuing with Top 10 Tools. So you've got this base of knowledge across the district. Yeah.
Correct. And we were looking at new curriculum, but we really felt strongly that we needed to build teacher knowledge. And so
Mhm.
we built that teacher knowledge. So when it came to vet curriculum, teachers really knew what they were looking for,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
could really dig into that a little bit more deeply.
Great. Yeah. So I think you answered some of this earlier, like who receives access to Top 10 Tools. But talk to us a little bit about monitoring the use and also
Sure.
the ongoing support while they're using Top 10 Tools.
Yeah, so we were able to just monitor use across the using the dashboard, and building principals are responsible for their new teachers kind of accessing the program. Kind of simultaneously, we've undertaken a lot of professional learning communities training and a lot of work around MTSS. And so having Top 10 Tools alongside of that has been really amazing, because it gives us the knowledge and the ability to really analyze data while we're working in those professional learning communities. So they've really worked nicely together. So the majority of the training and learning was done in a group so that it can be discussed and applied to actual students in real time.
I think that was part of the vision, the visionary vision that you had, Deb, around that collaboration module to make sure that the ongoing learning is supported in the community. Did you want to
Yeah.
say something about that, Deb?
Well, what I wanted to comment on, Megan, in Bozeman, I remember when you first started Top 10 Tools, you were one of the first districts, probably the only one in Montana at the time, and one of the first in the country to determine that balanced literacy was not working for your
Yeah,
students
yeah,
and wanted to move into the science of reading, wanted to move into building the knowledge about how kids truly do learn to read, where teachers to put emphasis to make a difference. And those scores that we looked at that you said were flat, they're still going up, but they are
Mhm.
much higher than they were when you very first started the
yes.
program,
Mhm.
which is my hat's off to your schools and principals and teachers and districts for hanging in there and really making a difference and making that
Thank you.
change.
Thank you. It helps to have the teacher knowledge. And I
Yeah.
have to admit that that can be a frustrating process for teachers. I think the knee-jerk or instinctual response is like, just tell me what to do. Give me the book, give me the manual. But we've found over the process of implementing this, empowering our teachers with that knowledge base has really really done wonders for student achievement.
And what your data shows too is that line that you can draw between teacher knowledge and the outcomes for students, which is a
Right.
really important acknowledgement.
Right.
Great. So what has been the educator response around Top 10 Tools?
It's been really wonderful. We didn't get much pushback once people understood the mindset and the why. There is a little bit of a grieving process for people understanding that what they've been doing isn't best practice. There's guilt and there's a lot of feelings that come along with that, but I think people really embrace when you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
Um, and it's really empowered really good conversation. And it's given us a common language across the district. So if people are moving buildings or moving grade levels, there's this common language and common understanding across the district staff, which is really powerful.
Mhm. I had the privilege at one of the first, actually the very first Big Sky, to moderate a panel that included some of your colleagues and Dr. Bertram. And I'll never forget one thing that he said that has always stuck with me is when he, as the leader, said all means all.
Yeah,
And we weren't doing right by all of our students. Yeah, if you look at our demographics, like you said, or if you look at kind of overall, it looks pretty good. But if you really dig deep, and I remember, in the panel, them talking about how top 10 tools had really made a difference for their recognition that we can achieve this for all of our students.
right, right.
We can achieve outcomes for all of our students.
And I think that really my kind of biggest chunk of my career was in special education. And so all of my reading instruction background came from that lens.
Mhm.
But just how powerful it is that like what works for kids with dyslexia works for everyone is a really powerful piece of this learning and training.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So talk a little bit more about the outcomes then, that translation of this teacher knowledge to students' achievement.
Yeah, so again, I just feel like teachers are much more confident in their ability to apply research-based practices in the classroom. Um, Top 10 Tools really does a nice job of catering to teachers who really like to dig into research, read the articles, get into the theoretical, but then also give you real practical application that you can watch and see, and something you can turn around and apply the next day. You don't turn around like, okay, now what? It's very
Mhm.
applicable. So I think it's really raise teachers' confidence and excitement about teaching reading. And again, like I said earlier, I feel like it gives people language and knowledge to really analyze our reading data and really dig into where kids need support and intervention and where kids need enrichment and extension. And that's the powerful
Mhm.
switch for
Yeah.
kids right there.
Well, you mentioned common language, common academic language. It gives your whole, all of your teachers this common language with which to talk about their teaching, with which to talk about their students. That's really
Mhm.
powerful. And this last bullet point, as a publisher of teacher materials, of course, I want to make sure we're putting the best resources in teachers' hands, which I believe we do at 95% Group. But then to also have that underlying knowledge so that you can maximize the use of those resources to meet the needs of all kids. That's really the perfect combination.
Yeah, it is. When you
Yeah.
understand why you're doing what you're doing, it's
Hmm.
very powerful.
Yeah. So here's just a couple quotes. We'll just let our audience read these quotes. One is from the superintendent, Casey Bertram. We mentioned him earlier. Another one is from a teacher commenting about the real life application. So I'll let you read those for just a second. So Megan, talk about your next steps. What are your next steps for professional learning and top 10 tools now and in the coming year?
Yeah, so we are kind of renewing our commitment to our new teachers incoming. As we all know, teacher preparation comes in a wide variety of shapes and forms, even from our local universities. And so we're really committed to that new teacher onboarding piece. It's nice that it can be done on their own time. They can take it at their own pace, which is really powerful. So we're committed to that and offering refreshers to anyone who's wanting that. We did create binders for each of our teachers that went along with the training, and so it's nice we all have one of those and can dig it out. And hey, our students, our grade level data is really flat in phonology. Like, let's dig into this a little bit. Let's
Hmm.
talk about where
Hmm.
the holes are. And we still have those materials, which is really nice. But I think what's key is just making sure all of the new hires are on board because as we all know, there's, a fair amount of turnover in
Hmm.
education.
Yeah. So for teachers, all means all as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Very good. So I was just checking the chat to see if we had any questions for you, Megan.
Mhm.
Deb, thank you for answering our questions here that we've had in the chat. All right. Okay. Is there anything else you want us to know, Megan?
No, just that we're willing to, talk with anyone about our experience and we're here to help and here to make it easier for everybody. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Megan. That's really generous. And I hope some people listening in tonight are going to take you up on that because, hearing directly from a district that's been through a long-term commitment in professional learning and really seen outcomes for teachers and students, that's incredibly powerful. So thank you. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Just scan this QR code and you can preview course content from the Tool 1 Knowledge, Tool 4 Phonics and Spelling, and Tool 6 Comprehension. So you can really preview, this wonderful tool, this wonderful professional learning comprehensive course, and you can also kind of evaluate this and see how this can work for you. So go ahead and scan that QR code. And as we wrap it up, first of all, thank you to my colleagues. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Erin and Deb, the incomparable Deb Glaser. Thank you for being with us tonight. Megan, it was just really wonderful to hear your story, and we so appreciate all that you're doing every day for the students and the teachers at Bozeman. And thank all of you for joining us tonight. Really, again, as we said before, you're the ones that are doing the hard work. We support. It's just an honor to be able to support you in that work. So we have one more webinar coming up here in May, which is part of a 4-part series that we've been doing called Science of Reading 2.0. It's on implementation. And I will be in conversation with a leader, Ken Kirby, a really wonderful, wonderful leader from Arkansas. And we will be talking about how do we protect our investment? Many of us have made big investments in materials and professional learning. And what do we need to do to support that investment and protect that investment? So you don't want to miss it. And we've had 3 previous webinars in this series that are now available on demand. And you can just scan the QR code and register there. All right, and last but not least, here's our contact information. As Megan said, she's so generous. She volunteered to be available for people that might want to reach out and learn more about Bozeman's journey. So here's her contact information. And then myself, Deb, Erin, and then also our manager of professional learning. Our contact information is here. And if you are interested in 95% Group products and services, this is our group of wonderful account associates and regional account executives who are here to support you in knowing more about us and what we offer and how those offerings might fit in with your goals. So feel free to look for your state and reach out directly to that account executive and account associate. All right, again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We so appreciate you, and we hope to see you on another webinar again soon. Good night, everybody.